Or you're a Hindu and you're watching this video. If I ask you what it means to be a Hindu, can you answer that? What does it take to be a Hindu? Because it's not our fault. There are a number of books which I have to read and go through to understand Hinduism. There is no single book. So if I have to understand the core ideology of Hinduism, I'll have to go through many books, many philosophies, Upanishads, Vedas, Puranas. And I don't even know if I would find the core ideology of Hinduism even by the end of reading all that, or I might be lost. So people stopped asking questions. People stopped understanding. They're just going by customs and traditions. Even if you ask your parents, even if you ask your ancestors, like, why should we do this way? They would probably answer it by saying, my father has done the same, my ancestors have done the same, so I'm doing it. That is the reason why, for the most questions like your regular day questions, you will not find answers with your ancestors, because they have seen their fathers and forefathers do it. That is the only reason they are doing it. They never found time to question, which is the core ideology of Hinduism. So if you question, you will understand. And by questioning comes more questioning. Now that you understood that you have to question to be a Hindu, the question is whom to question. As a Hindu, you're not questioning other religious people. The core understanding of Hinduism is to question yourself. The core understanding of Hinduism is to question myself into what I am becoming. That's the only question you should keep asking yourself. What am I becoming? What am I becoming? Did you ever ask? Did you ever ask this question to yourself? In Hinduism, the cosmic law is the highest of laws on which Dharma and Karma is decided. So it asks humans to be thinking agents rather than rule followers. So whenever you understand something or question something, Hinduism in this aspect assumes something very radical, that human beings themselves are capable of moral reasoning. But you don't need any constant surveillance from God telling you what to do, what not to do. That humans can make their own decisions. And trust me, on what you do, your Dharma and your Karma are based. We'll discuss that in the next videos. That is the reason why Hindu texts, they often don't threaten you. They expect you to understand. They expect you to question yourself. They expect you to connect the dots. This is why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Karmanyevadikaraste mag phaleshu kadachana. I'm sure everyone might have read these words somewhere. Which means you are expected to do your actions, your duties, but you cannot expect the results. The results are not your thing to worry. He doesn't say act or show me, do this so that I'll reward you. He doesn't say do this or I'll punish you. He says do this, do anything, but you, in the end, are responsible for your own action. Your obsession with your result, it corrupts your judgment. So he says do, but don't expect the result. Many people ask us, what should I understand? Or which God should I believe to be a Hindu? What should I believe in the end to be a Hindu? That question comes from a worldly mindset of different religions which we know of. So Hindu philosophy, it's not more interested on what you believe in. It's more interested on what you are becoming. It doesn't focus on what you're gaining. It focuses on what you're losing. Let's say I ask you questions like, how are you becoming less violent in thought and in action? Are you becoming less greedy in action or less arrogant when you succeed? Because when you succeed, you will get arrogance and you will get that aham, which means me. That's not the Hindu way. The more me you'll get, the more karma you bind to yourself. This is the reason why Upanishads rarely give you commandments. They describe your state of awareness. They don't say believe this or something else. They say when ignorance drops, suffering drops. Truth is not enforced. Truth is realized. Now we'll discuss what Hinduism is not. To discuss this, you have to clear some misunderstandings about the regular Hinduism. Hinduism was never about fear of gods, how many gods you worship, how many gods you worship on a daily basis, weekly basis, because we almost have a number of gods, and most people keep a god for the week. So it's not about fear of gods or how many gods you serve. This is not about mindless ritual repetitions or any mantras or anything. It's not about escaping the responsibility by saying karma will handle it. If a belief produces cruelty, fatalism, or moral laziness, it is a corruption, not a teaching. Hindu philosophy does not remove your responsibility. It intensifies your responsibility. As a closing thought on this video, I'm sure you must have understood what Hindu ideology relies on. Hinduism does not demand belief first. It demands clarity. Clarity in your thought, clarity in your action, and clarity of what consequences lies ahead. So if you got that clarity of what you're thinking, you will have a clarity on what to act on. Because you already have a clarity on what consequences they are going to be. And that is the sole ideology of Hinduism. So if you're a Hindu and you're watching this video,
हिंदू महासभा का प्रदेश अध्यक्ष विद्यार्थी परिषद होने के नाते वीर जवानों उठो, अब वो समय आ गया है कि हमें हमारे हक की लड़ाई लड़ना है। हमें तो किसी भी हालत में हमारी सरकार बनाना है, चाहे रुपए का ढेर लगाना पड़े या किसी को मारना पड़े, चाहे दिल्ली में बम कांड करना पड़े, हमें हमारी सरकार बनाना है। हमें कोई मतलब नहीं है किसी से, हमें जीतना है किसी भी हालत में। भाड़ में जाए जनता के मुद्दे, भाड़ में जाए वो माताएं बहने, भाड़ में जाए वो युवा और भाड़ में जाए वो पढ़े लिखे, हमें कोई
इधर ठोक के इसे बना दूंगा, इतना याद रखना।
बोलेगा, ये बोलेगा, बोल जय श्री राम।
बिजनेस का इसको पैदा करने वाला, मतलब मेरी कैसे प्रेग्नेंट हुई थी बताओ।
Who are all these people? We call them Indians. They're doing anti-constitutional riots, causing unrest everywhere. We call them Hindus because they are protecting Dharma. You're misunderstanding what it is to be the ideology of Hinduism. What do you think of all these other religions in the world? What is Hinduism? Despite the religious debates all over the world during the decades, and despite the temple rituals, despite these godmen and all the babas and all their speeches, despite their fear-based postures or their speeches, what is Hinduism? What is the ideology that Hinduism follows? Because I'm sure as a Hindu, you might have had a number of questions in your head whenever you follow any sort of custom or any tradition. This is your innate curiousness of asking questions. So, in India, we inherit Hinduism even before we understand it. We follow customs before ask why. We repeat words before we grasp meaning. We defend our religion before we even define it. As a result, Hinduism is often accused of things it never promised, and unusually praised for things it never demanded. Some say Hinduism is superstition, some say it's idol worship, some say it's fear of karma and hell. So what if I tell you all these ideas came later when people stopped asking questions? So today, we begin at the beginning, before gods, before rituals, before debates. What exactly is Hinduism? And we'll focus on what it is not. Most people unconsciously assume that every religion works the same way. They'll have one founder, one book, one final authority, one fixed rule set. But what if I tell you Hinduism does not fit this structure at all? There is no historical moment where Hinduism started, no single prophet, no single author, no divine courtroom issuing final orders. Instead, Hindu thought evolved slowly through observation, debate, and reflection into thyself. So, in the beginning, the first line of Brahma Sutras, it says, Atato Brahma Jignasa, which means, now you should question the truth. It's not with worship, it's not with fear, it's not with inquiry. That single sentence tells us something powerful. It says reality is not to be obeyed, it is to be understood. The main foundation pillar inside the Hinduism is to question. Yes, those innate curiousness questions that you have inside your head about the customs, about the traditions that you follow. That is the ideology of Hinduism. Hinduism was never a rule book religion. It never says, do this because God said so. Hindu philosophy asks, what happens when you act this way? What happens to you? What happens to others? Secondly, Hinduism is practically a way of life, how to deal with your own life, how to understand what you are becoming. Hinduism assumes something very radical. Every day you think, you decide, you fail, you learn. It assumes something very radical, that human beings are capable of moral reasoning, that you don't need constant surveillance from heaven or God to know the difference between right and wrong. This is why Hindu texts rarely threaten. Instead, they explain the consequences of what will happen if you do this way, what will happen if you do that way. What consequences do you carry? Hi, welcome to the Holistic Indian YouTube channel. This is a series which is mainly focused on how to be an ideal Hindu. And this series will explain how dharmas work, how karma will work, how hell works. And by the end of this series, you will understand what it means to be an ideal Hindu. You don't have to become a sage or a saint or to understand this. So this focuses on how a regular Hindu man, by abiding his regular duties as a husband, as someone who works somewhere, as a regular everyday Indian and Hindu, how can he perform his duties, uphold his dharma, and be a Hindu? The next video focuses on how dharma comes before God. So I request you to stay tuned for the next video.